You have to pick your options very carefully to make this work. Right. Number one is you want adjacent strike prices generally. You look at options prices, there's always a long list that are called options chains, listing different strike prices that are available. Now, if you want to, you can do spreads that are very broad. But when you do that, you're increasing the level of your risk because the long position, the one that you're buying, is providing less insurance against the one that you sell. So that's a very risky thing to do. As a general rule, if you're doing credit spreads, and I'm advocating conservative spreads here, what you want to do is use adjacent strike prices. Another key point is expiration, typically in 2 to 6 weeks. Now, ordinarily, if you're buying options, you want to give yourself time to be right, as the saying goes. So the usual rule of thumb, if you're buying options, is to allow at least 90 days, right? But this is exactly the opposite. You want the options to expire worthless, and so the sooner that happens, the better. And if you have to wait a long time, that increases your risk. So usually what you want to do is trade the front month, the closest month. You know, there might be something left in September options, or you do October options now. You wouldn't want to go further than that for a credit spread, because the more time you have to wait, the greater the risk is. Another thing is to use out-of-the-money options as far out as possible. Now, everybody will not tell you that. In fact, if you look at many websites, and there are scanning devices that you use to find these things, they will show you in the money or at the money options. The thing is, if you start a credit spread with an in the money option, you must be right about the direction of the market because you have no latitude at all in setting that up. If the prices go in the opposite direction, you start losing money right away. If you go with out-of-the-money options, not only can stocks go up or down and you profit, but they can stay neutral too. So you have room to be wrong. You know, you're a lot safer there, and you don't have to stay up nights worrying. Another criterion I usually look for is that the credit that you get should be at least 10% of the spread. On any investment, you have to look at the ratio of risk to reward, and it's easy to find credit spreads that pay you a very small return on the money that you're putting up. But you really want to get at least 10% to make it worthwhile. Sometimes you can do a lot better than that, but that would be a minimum. And if you think about it, it makes these enormously profitable, because if you're getting a 10% return on money invested every 2 to 6 weeks, think of what that means on an annualized basis. You're looking at 100% plus in a year. Now, of course, you're not going to be right 100% of the time, but even giving something for potential losses, you ought to be able to do at least 50% a year on these things if you apply these criteria. Another key point is to look mainly at options on indexes or very broad, high-volume ETFs. And the reason why is that individual stocks can always blow up. There's always room for a surprise. There's always that unanticipated earnings announcement or bad news, or the CEO absconded with all the firm's money. There's always something that could happen. If you get an option on an index or a very broad ETF with a lot of stocks on it, the risk is much less that a bad event with one stock is going to heavily affect that index. So it's much, much safer, and most of the people that trade credit spreads professionally for an income will look only at indexes and the high volume ETFs. And then you want to look for options with high implied volatility. Implied volatility is a standard statistic that's used by options traders. It's very similar to standard deviation for any of you that are familiar with statistics. It's a measure of the variability of the prices on the underlying stock or on an option. And this is more sensitive to falling prices than it is to rising prices. Tends to go up when prices are falling. And since you want the option that you sell to become valueless, that is actually more likely to happen if it's high in volatility, because of the possibility of what option traders call a volatility squeeze, which is that if there's a lot of turmoil in the market, volatility will go up and be very high, and then regardless of what happens to the underlying stock, volatility can go down, things can calm down. And when they calm down, options prices, both puts and calls, will also come down, right? Which is what you want. So as a general rule in any strategy, if you're buying options, you want to buy low volatility. If you're selling options, like you are with credit spreads, you want to sell high volatility.